Personal and management toolboxes. What is meant by that? Well, the way I had it described to me was back in my undergraduate years when I was learning to become a teacher. And the teacher said, this class we're going to talk about what do you do with your more extreme examples, stating that for most kids, you're just going to be able to just have the curriculum. You're going to teach the class, and everything's going to go fine. They're going to do exactly what you want them to do, and that's going to be the end of that. But the question is, what are you going to do when you have a kid that doesn't follow the script, doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing, isn't staying on task, isn't completing their work? And that's when you're going to need a toolbox. You're going to need something that you can pull out, skills that you can pull out and use with that kid and have prepared that are going to make them successful as well. And so while Dave Rice is the one who came up with these lecture topics, I saw this and I thought of that. So this gets back to knowledge of self. You're going to be most successful in what you're doing here if you understand who you are and what skills you possess. When we're talking about a personal toolbox, we're talking about what are your go-to, what do you know how to do when things go wrong? Are you a patient person? Are you likable? Are you someone who's a good leader? What skills do you possess? But it goes deeper than that as well. Okay? Do you know how to find the resources you need? Some of the things in your toolbox may be, management theory, and perhaps you haven't had to use, what you learned in your management classes or read in one of your management textbooks, but you remember it's there, and you kept that book, and you can go back to it and look, oh, okay, well, this is how I design a good incentive program, or this is what I do when I need to discipline an employee. That you know that this skill is there. Perhaps this, when it comes to personal toolboxes, this may be, the person whom that you can get advice from, a mentor. Okay, it's a set of resources, a set of skills that you possess, and those are the ones you start off with in your personal toolbox. Okay, it's also important to understand the concept of having these go-to people, these go-to skills, and then to develop them along the way. Okay, to not just be stuck with what you start with, but actually be able to grow more. Say you go to a convention, or you're working on a sale with another company, and you meet someone who you think is really dynamic, really interesting, and has a fantastic perspective. Making that contact, making sure it's okay to contact them later, keeping that business card, or contact it in your phone or whatever, and being able to converse with that person later. Having that ready to go so that they're totally okay with you calling them for advice is something you can do to add to your personal toolbox. And so another thing you can do is exactly what you're doing right now, which is going back to school. Or going to school, perhaps, for the first time, going to college and furthering your education. And what that does is it does two different things. Number one, hopefully, you're learning, even in a class like this, you're learning things that you can use in the real world, that you can use in your environment. But it goes beyond that as well. It's also that you're learning and meeting people. You're meeting people like Dave Rice. You're meeting people like the people in your classes who maybe have skills that you don't, but by making those contacts, by knowing those people, you can go back to them and say, hey, I need your help with this, or what would you do in this situation? Okay, so you're networking just by virtue of being in the class. You're building skills, you're learning things, you're increasing your personal toolbox. What else can you do to increase your personal toolbox? Well, one of the things I like to do is to read, and to read business, economics, finance, books, just popular books. They don't have to be textbooks, and to gain from the experience of others by learning what they've done in those situations. What do they prescribe? What do they think is a good idea about how to run your business, or advice and way to manage your employees. Okay? Something that you're doing right now that I've actually found very useful too is to do online learning. This video is being hosted on YouTube, and Lord knows there's a wealth of other things on YouTube. There's other places like Khan Academy. iTunes is just getting fabulous. I mean, I have a couple of iTunes classes loaded on the very iPad that I'm recording this on. Gaining those skills, gaining knowledge, and so much more than it's ever been, it's free. Okay? Your management toolbox is just basically the same as your personal toolbox, because, really, when we're managing, we're generally being ourselves, and we're managing other people. But, it's important to think about it a little bit separately, to know what are you going to do if, to sort of treat your pursuit of good management as a choose-your-own-adventure book, or a decision tree, and I'll get into what both of them are. If you remember from your childhood, the libraries had these choose-your-own-adventures where it would go and it would you'd go along, and all of a sudden it would ask you to make a choice. And if you made choice A, you turned to page 70, and if you made choice B, you'd turn to page 63, and and then it would lead you from there. And you weren't reading from page 1 to page 100 in a row. You were guiding the actions of the characters, and therefore could influence the outcome. And that if you view your management and your journey in that way, it's helpful, because you could take on what you're prepared for. You can know what skills are in your management toolboxes, and not choose those adventures that you're not ready for. Having an awareness, but of what's in there. What do you have? What are you willing to do? If you have an employee who is insubordinate, what choices can you make that are realistic for you? What do you know how to do? And it's very important to build more things. If you know that you're weak at an area, read what others do, and feel free to copy. It's not about inventing the wheel. Go out, find someone to talk to who's been in your situation, or find a book that's written from the perspective of someone who's been in your situation, and gain those skills. Figure out what they did, practice it, and be ready to use it. So a book that I found very interesting in that way was a book like Who Moved My Cheese, which talked about that if you continue to do the same thing in business, and that for a while that's going to work, but eventually your cheese, or where success is going to be somewhere else. Someone else is going to figure out how to get that market, sell to those people, and they're going to try to share your cheese. And if you don't learn how to be dynamic and be able to move and be able to change, then eventually there's not going to be any of that cheese left, but that there will be cheese in other places that you'll miss out on. Versus if you are willing to recognize what's going on in the environment, willing to see what's happening, what's changing, and affect what you're doing thereof, that you can be much more successful. Another book that really I thought was helpful in building my management toolbox and personal toolbox as well is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. A lot of people have read that. It's a many million times selling book, so hopefully you have as well. But if you haven't, it discusses skills, the 7 skills that people who tend to be successful have. There's skills like beginning with the end in mind, and knowing what you're going to accomplish before you start. Sharpening the saw. Going back and relearning, and making sure that you are continuing to learn. That you are always, your mind being the Shah, that you're always keeping it sharp. Things like looking for win-win scenarios so that we can both be happy with an outcome instead of one of us feeling like we won and the other one feeling like we lost. Anyway, having more than one way to solve a problem, having more than one solution for everything, having skills that if A doesn't work, that you can try B, if B doesn't work, that you can try C, will not only make you better at what you do, because not everyone's different, but it'll make you more confident, because you can know that if you try something and it doesn't work, it's not the end, that you've got other things that you can try. So feel free to contact me on this one as well. I feel like I've ended up being more vague than I had prepared for, but this is one of those things that's easier to see when you're doing and you're using those skills that you have in your toolboxes than it is to necessarily discuss. And it's also one I really wish we were having a in-class discussion for this, because it'd be interesting to talk to you all about what you think you're in your personal toolboxes, what skills you have, and what's not there but that you want to have, and how you think you can develop them. A lot of workplaces develop a professional development plan, or a learning plan, so that you can learn what you need to and have a way to accomplish all of that learning that'll make you most successful in your business. So anyway, I look forward to discussion on this, and I hope that we really interact with each other on this one, talking about our personal toolboxes.